Hello and welcome to Summarize, Press TV's weekly show on Palestine. I'm Roshan Mohammed Salih. Israel has caused outrage by passing a new nationality law which critics say enshrine its apartheid nature. The new law describes Israel as the historical homeland of the Jewish people, in which it actualizes its natural, religious and historical right for self-determination, which is unique to the Jewish people. The new law also states that Jerusalem al-Quds is the capital of Israel and the language of Israel is Hebrew. And it states that Israel views Jewish settlement as a national value and will labour to encourage and promote its establishment and development. On today's show, we'll discuss if this new law amounts to a public statement of Israel's racism. But first, here's a report on the passing of the new nationality law.
Israel's new nation-state law, backed by the right-wing regime, passed by a vote of 62 to 55 in the Knesset after months of political argument. Some Palestinian lawmakers shouted and ripped up papers after the vote.
We will keep ensuring civil rights in Israel's democracy. These rights will not be harmed, but the majority also has rights and the majority decides. An absolute majority wants to ensure our state's Jewish character for generations to come.
The law stipulates that Israel is the historic homeland of the Jewish people and have an exclusive right to national self-determination in it. It also strips Arabic of its designation as an official language alongside Hebrew, downgrading it to a special status that enables its continued use within Israeli institutions.
The nationality bill is a hate crime. They are totally discriminating against the Arab citizens, against the Arab minority, with racist articles, especially those of Jewish settlements, and those articles downgrading the status of the Arabic language.
Palestinians in Israel number around 2 million. They are mainly descendants of those who remained on the land during the creation of Israel when hundreds of thousands were forced to leave their homes or fled. Those Palestinians who remained say they face constant discrimination, citing their inferior services and unfair allocations for education, health and housing.
I think this is racist legislation by a radical right-wing regime that's creating radical laws and is planting the seeds to create an apartheid state. Several laws have been drafted recently. This is only one of a series of laws that raises a question mark about whether Israel is a democratic country for all its citizens or for Jews only.
Palestinians inside the Green Line are very angry and they think that this law would make their life more difficult, although in my opinion, and also in the opinion of other people, that this would facilitate our struggle by way that we can expose the true character of the State of Israel and its true policy.
To discuss the new Israeli nationality law, we have two guests in the studio with us today. Laura Stewart is a pro-Palestinian activist based here in London. She's a contributor to the Islam 21C website and was on the 2010 Turkish ship, the Mavi Marmara, which was attacked by Israeli forces while on its way to Gaza. And Kajsa Ankerstrom is a pro-Palestine activist who has just recently come back after volunteering for 5.5 months with the International Solidarity Movement in the West Bank. Welcome to you both. Kajsa, if I can come to you first. Following the enactment of this new law, can we now unashamedly call Israel racist?
Well, before the National State Bill came into existence this past week, there were 65 laws which already discriminated against Palestinian citizens living within Israel itself and within the occupied Palestinian territories. So Israel already had big elements of apartheid anyway, but this law has helped to further enshrine apartheid into law. Those Palestinians which were already marginalised are sought to be even further marginalised now. And this has given the green flag for Israel to continue its crimes against the Palestinians and to uphold Jewish supremacy.
Kajsa, you've just come back from the West Bank, haven't you? I know this law applies to Israel, not to the occupied territories. But can you kind of just recount some of your experiences in terms of how Israeli apartheid kind of impacts on the West Bank, areas like that?
So I was actually in one of the most difficult situations in the West Bank, which is Al Khalil, Hebron. It's unlike any other situation in the West Bank where you have Israeli settlers living inside the actual city and protected by over 1,000 Israeli soldiers. There are many areas in Al Khalil, Hebron, where people can't go, Palestinians can't go, they can't drive down, they can't walk down, children have to go through checkpoints. The level of racism and discrimination is it's unheard of. You have to go there to see it. It's abhorrent.
Yeah. Laura, Israel says it's the only democracy in the Middle East. It says that it's a secular state, all citizens are equal, etc.
That's not true, is it? Not true at all. No. In a way, I agree with one of the Palestinians that were interviewed there that in one sense, this is positive because the state of Israel is further exposing itself and its racism. Now, I made a few notes before I came here today that I want to read because this is an interesting little experiment. Jewish nationalism, a type of nationalism that holds the belief that Jewish people are a race. As you probably have Jewish friends that don't believe that being Jewish is a race. Its proponents identify with and are attached to the concept of a Jewish race. Jewish people should maintain a majority in the state and maintain political and economic dominance. And Jewish nationalists believe that their culture should be foremost. We can see that as well in so much as the Arabic language has now been downgraded. Jewish nationalists are anti-miscegnation. That means they don't want intermarriage. They're anti-multiculturalism and anti-immigration. We know all that is true. Now, what is interesting about these statements is that, in fact, this was taken from the Wikipedia page that describes what is white supremacism. I looked up white nationalism, white supremacism, and all I did was change from white to Jewish. So the statements fit exactly with the state of Israel. Jewish supremacism is the pursuit of a Jews-only state.
So this is what we have now, is it kind of, you're saying Jewish supremacism effectively enshrined in law?
Exactly. So actually it says white supremacism is the pursuit of a whites-only state. But I've changed white to Jewish, and it fits exactly.
Palestinians within the 1948 areas, which is called Israel today, treated as second-class citizens. Is that the case?
Yes, and they're going to be corralled into their Arab-only areas. They're not going to be allowed to mix. So yes, apartheid.
Kaiser, apartheid, yeah. Kaiser, one of the aspects of this new law, it does say that Jewish settlement is a fundamental national value. I think it describes it as Jews from anywhere in the world can come and live in Israel, whereas Palestinians, who were forced out of their homes in 48 can't come back. I mean, that's apartheid, right?
It's apartheid, it's war crimes, it's against international law. The right of return, is emboldened by international law. It is a right. Palestinians should return. The more that these settlements expand, the more Palestine goes.
So Palestine is slowly being wiped off the map.
Absolutely.
Basically.
And what options do Palestinians have left? There's all these laws being written against them. There's settlements expanding. Even their language has been downgraded. They can't go to schools. They can't build properties. This is inside 48. And also in the West Bank, with these settlements expanding, people still touting the two-state solution is just biding more time for Israel, when actually you can see exactly which direction it's going in by looking at this new law that's been passed.
Okay, we're going to continue this discussion in a few minutes' time, but we are going to move on. The Israeli nationality law isn't the only issue that's been making the headlines and trending on social media this week. In Gaza, besieged residents are increasingly expecting the breakout of another major Israeli military attack following several deadly strikes in recent days. Ashraf Shannon in Gaza City explains what's happening.
Gazans are bracing themselves for another Israeli war as Israeli forces have carried out dozens of airstrikes in recent days, prompting retaliatory rocket attacks by Palestinian resistance groups, mainly Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. Israeli forces have also attacked security posts of Palestinian resistance groups, killing several members of Hamas's military wing, the Qassam brigades. Gazans say that another war will only aggravate the situation.
If the war doesn't start today, it will happen very soon. Our living conditions are miserable, and the situation here is already very dire, and all aspects of life have deteriorated.
Israeli forces have killed scores of peaceful protesters since March 30th and injured thousands who were demanding the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Experts say the threats of war are mere attempts by Tel Aviv to stop the Great March of Return. The recent Israeli violence has been the most serious escalation since Israel's 2014 war on the Gaza Strip.
Undoubtedly, there are real Israeli threats to wage a major military aggression against the Gaza Strip. We've seen deployment of Israeli forces near Gaza in recent days, and I think the threats are very serious. Israel's planning a war against Gaza and is encouraged to do so due to the silence and collusion of the international community.
Palestinian resistance factions have accused the Israeli regime of committing war crimes against the Palestinian people and demanded that Israeli leaders be brought to justice.
The United Nations and all international human rights organizations, as well as Islamic and Arab organizations, must send fact-finding missions to expose Israeli war crimes against the Palestinian people and make the Israeli regime pay for its crimes against our people.
During the 2014 war, Israeli forces killed and injured thousands of Gazans, including hundreds of women and children.
Many here believe that another Israeli war is just a matter of time, given the failure of the international community to protect the Palestinian people. Ashraf Shannon, The Sun Will Rise, Gaza.
Laura, picking up from that report, are you expecting a new war in Gaza?
I don't believe that there will be this time. I don't believe that either side actually wants it. I was reading that there are actually back channels through Qatar, and neither side wants an escalation. But Trump has enabled actually Netanyahu to do exactly what he wants with complete impunity. So if Israel wants to, it can flatten Gaza again, as it has done before. And public opinion is turning against Israel. However, the leadership of the UK government, for example, is not going to say no. They'll say, we're very disappointed, or, you know,
so you feel that if it does happen, Israel will get a kind of a green light, a tacit green light for a few weeks at least to flatten Gaza?
There'll be no repercussions whatsoever, none at all.
Kaisa, same question to you really. Are you expecting a war or not?
I would hope that there wouldn't be one, but looking at the lines which are coming from the War Minister Avigdor Lieberman and from Nefertari Bennett and from Netanyahu himself, it looks like they are ramping up escalations. It was just the other night that over 40 bombs had been dropped on Gaza. I believe that that they will. It's been a while since the last
4 years
escalation.
But I mean, Kaisa, isn't Gaza? I mean, obviously we have a very right-wing regime, don't we, in Tel Aviv?
Yes.
And isn't Gaza an easier target? I mean, obviously there are other enemies like, I don't know, Iran or Hezbollah are tougher targets, aren't they, or Syria? Whereas Gaza is an easy target for the Israelis. Is that right?
I wouldn't say it's an easy target. I mean, the resistance does all that it can to try and protect the population. I mean, how can you with such sophisticated weapons which are being used? But I think that the situation is pushing people right until the uppermost limits.
Yes.
95% of drinking water is undrinkable in Gaza. Over 75,000 are still homeless from the last aggression on Gaza. 4 hours of electricity every single day. More restrictions on the forbidden items list put on there by Israel, including baby formula, baby formula. What are Hamas or anybody else going to do with baby formula? This is not about restricting certain items which Israel deems as dangerous to let into Gaza.
Yeah.
This is about collective punishment.
Laura, I know you've tried to get into Gaza. I think actually you've been to Gaza in the past.
Times,
Yes, a few times. And the last time you couldn't, obviously, when the Mavi Mama was attacked. Gazans now, I mean, the situation was quite desperate when you went. Now they've got absolutely nothing to lose, have they?
No, and that's what the state of Israel is pushing for. They want the people of Gaza to overthrow Hamas, to blame Hamas. They don't want them to blame Israel. So what they're pushing for is to make life so miserable, so desperate and so hopeless that the people will overthrow Hamas there. It's not going to happen, but that's what they want.
But why did you say earlier, you said that neither side want a major escalation? Why did you say that?
Because the state of Israel is aware that the world looks at it very negatively because we can watch it on our TV, we can watch these bombings happen. The people are not that far away. Nothing is hidden. The Palestinians can film things. They get the footage out within minutes. We all know what's going on there. They can't hide the destruction. So,
but they are concerned about these marches, these peaceful marches, aren't they? They want those to stop, right? And the reason why they say they attacked Gaza apparently was because of these, what they call as incendiary kites or balloons, which explode and destroy some bit of land or whatever in Israel.
There's always an excuse for Israel to attack the people in Gaza and to invade. They often go through the fence to destroy the crops.
Yeah.
They kill people from the sea, from the air. So it's not in between the conflicts like Cast Lead or whatever. In between, it never stops. They're always killing Palestinians, always murdering people.
Any sign whatsoever of hope in terms of ending the siege of Gaza, Kaiser, or is this going to go on forever?
The international community now needs to wake up in face of this nation-state bill and see what the end goal of Israel is, and they need to employ sanctions against Israel now.
What is the end goal of Israel, Kaiser?
The end goal of Israel is as much land for Israelis and as little land for Palestinians as possible. And in fact, I think Israel wants to go beyond that. I've seen some plans for if they do want to go into Gaza, that they will separate the Gaza Strip into two and reoccupy. There's so many different plans about this deal of the century coming
Yes,
through.
and no one knows what that is really. But I mean, obviously, I think most analysts feel that Israel does have designs over the West Bank. Gaza, you think Gaza as well?
I think that it's become a very big headache for Israel, and they want to keep the situation as desperate as possible, but I think it's actually doing them a lot of harm in regards to the media and in regards to social media in particular, because people can see these conditions. People are not stupid.
Okay, we're going to conclude our discussion in a few minutes' time. We are going to catch up now with a few recent stories about Palestine that you probably didn't see on the mainstream media. Israel has evacuated hundreds of members of the White Helmets organization from Syria to Jordan. The White Helmets and their supporters say they're a humanitarian organization which saves civilians from the rubble and devastation caused by Syrian army and Russian airstrikes. But their detractors say they're a Western propaganda tool and are linked to extremist groups in Syria. The German and British foreign ministers welcomed the evacuation of the White Helmets, as did Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu. It's thought the majority of them will be given refuge in Western nations such as the United Kingdom. Arkan Tha'ar Mizhar, a 15-year-old Palestinian teenager who was shot in the chest by Israeli forces in Bethlehem, has died. His funeral took place on Monday. Israeli military forces stormed the refugee camp where he was living, raided houses and used live ammunition as well as tear gas and stun grenades. Israel claims its actions were in response to Palestinians throwing rocks at troops, although they suffered no casualties. And the United Nations Human Rights Chief Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein has slammed Israel over deaths on the Gaza border fence, calling the recent killings by soldiers during Palestinian demonstrations shocking. He also criticized the approval by Israel's parliament of a bill defining the country as the nation state of the Jewish people. He said that the new law anchors inherent discrimination against non-Jewish communities, most notably Palestinians in the 1948 areas and residents of East Jerusalem, Al-Quds. I just want to conclude the show by returning to our original topic, the Israeli nationality law. Now, obviously, at the moment in the UK, we have this anti-Semitism debate going on in the Labour Party in particular over how to define what anti-Semitism is. And the Labour Party is being, one of the sticking points is whether we can call Israel racist. Now, I guess the pro-Israeli lobby is saying that we shouldn't call Israel racist because that would be anti-Semitic. But does that kind of, Kaiser, I'll start with you, does that kind of fall flat now that Israel has kind of enshrined racism into their constitution?
Absolutely, and I'd like to see how they could defend it, or try and say that Israel is not racist now that they have all of these laws. I mean, you just have to look through all the laws which only apply to Palestinians: building permits, land permits, access. It is more than blatant discrimination.
So should we be intimidated? I mean, obviously, a lot of even pro-Palestinians are intimidated into calling Israel racist, even questioning its moral right to exist, for example, because they know there's going to be a massive backlash. But should we be more tough and say blatantly Israel is an apartheid system, it's racist?
It's very racist. I mean, in 2009, they made a film about called Sleeping with the Enemy, and they actually have groups who called purity squads that go around persuading Jewish girls not to fraternize with Arab men. So imagine if we did that in this country. Imagine if the state dictated who's allowed to marry who. That's racism, and it's been going on for a very long time. One thing about Labour Party is that I wish Jeremy Corbyn had pushed back harder from the start. I think that he's been too polite and too nice and allowed this to increase in its
Jeremy
intensity.
Corbyn wouldn't. I mean, obviously he has been a pro-Palestinian activist all his life, but he would never call Israel racist, would he?
But he perhaps wouldn't, because he's a politician. But it clearly is. And I don't think that Jenny Formby and Jeremy Corbyn are going to be pushed into a position where they adopt the IHRA example that says...
They're resisting that, aren't they?
Yeah,
This is
they will do.
The pro-Israel lobby definition of what anti-Semitism is. Kaisa, if I could just perhaps end with you. What do you make of the international reaction to this new Israeli law? It has been criticised by the EU in particular. Israel seems to be going even too far for its friends, I guess.
Well, I know that the UN is looking at having a debate about the nation-state bill, but I've not heard a great outcry, which I thought I would do. I've heard some general discussion about it, but I've not heard enough to criticise it, to put it into its context of what it's about. It is discrimination, it's apartheid, it's supremacy, and it doesn't belong in 2018.
Okay, Kaisa Ankerstrom and Laura Stewart, thank you very much for coming in today. That is all the time we have today. Thank you for joining us, and please do continue to follow the show on social media. Now, we'll be back next week with more news and analysis on the Palestinian freedom struggle. Bye-bye.